Nearly everyone worries about money. In fact, over 40% of Australians say they are just surviving or depending on others. Over 30 years ago, Mr. Jim Rohn urged me to buy this book, The Richest Man in Babylon. He said if you read it, you will learn the rules of financial independence. And that got my curiosity up. Now, financial independence I define as being able to live off the income of your own assets and resources. Straight after the seminar, I went out and I bought the book. I bought the book because Mr. Rohn said only 3% of people would actually take his advice, and I wanted to be in that 3%. In this video, I'm going to share with you the 7 key lessons I learned in the book. I know that if you take them and implement them in your life, if you take action on them, you will never need to worry, or very rarely need to worry about money again. It's that powerful a book, even though it was written in 1926 by George Clason. G'day and welcome. My name's Willem, and on this channel, I share the tips, strategies, and philosophies that Mr. Rohn shared with me over 30 years ago. By consistently executing on these principles for success in both business and in life, I've been able to live a life on my terms, and I hope the channel will do the same for you. Now, let's hop straight into these 7 lessons. And lesson 1 is this: pay yourself first. Mr. Rohn said there are 2 types of people. There are people who spend first and save whatever is left. And then there are those who save first and spend whatever is left after that. What the book recommends is that you take aside 10% of your after-tax income. The tax department will get a fair whack of it first, and whatever is left after that, put that 10% aside for the future. Now, Mr. Rohn actually recommended to put 30% aside. He said, try to live on 70% of your after-tax income. And he said with the remaining 30%, put 10% aside for charity, 10% aside for capital that you invest and you manage yourself, like a part-time business, and 10% to an indexed fund or a fund that will manage it for you. But the critical rule to learn from lesson number 1 is don't spend all your after-tax income. It doesn't matter whether it's 5, 10, or 30%. Put some aside for the future. Now, who can do that? Well, the answer is anyone. Anyone can put 5 to 10% aside of their after-tax income and put it aside for future investments. But the huge takeaway from lesson 1 is this: pay yourself first. Pay yourself first before you pay Netflix, before you pay McDonald's, and before you pay Starbucks and everybody else. Make yourself rich first before you make others rich. Let's go to lesson 2. Lesson 2 is live below your means. In other words, don't spend everything. 29.7% of Australians and more Americans live paycheck to paycheck. In other words, from one paycheck to the next, there's virtually nothing left in the kitty to save or invest. In Australia, for people who earn 20 to 40,000, that number increases to 54% or more living paycheck to paycheck. But here's the interesting fact, that even people who earn over $100,000 a year, 18% of those people still live paycheck to paycheck. Now you may say to me, Willem, if I'm earning $100,000 a year, why would I still live paycheck to paycheck? And the answer is you're spending $120,000 per year. That's the problem. By simply earning more doesn't mean that you're actually going to save more. People tend to spend according to the amount they earn, unless you're proactive and you pay yourself first. So live well below your means, what you actually believe you need to live on. The book has a great quote: confuse not the necessary expenses with thy desires. And that's the problem. In Australia, we call it keeping up with the Joneses. It's our next door neighbours. If they've got a bigger TV, we need to get a bigger TV. If they have a fancier car, we need to get a fancy car. If they go on a really expensive holiday, we need to go on an expensive holiday. And so it becomes a never-ending circle. And even though we may be earning more, we're spending just as much as we're earning, and we're still living paycheck to paycheck. And what the book is trying to do in lesson 2 is to tell you, live well below what you need to live on. Let's go to lesson 3. Lesson 3 is make your money work for you. Once you've paid yourself first, whether that's 5, 10, 30%, you put that money somewhere where it can earn compound interest and start working for you. It was Einstein who said that compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it, and he who does not pays it. So lesson 3 is this. Take the money that you pay yourself first with and put it somewhere where it can earn compound interest. That might be a share portfolio, it could be property, it could be a part-time business. But make that money work just as hard as you do. Let's go to 4. Lesson 4 is manage your risk. And there's a great quote in the book that says, "Gold slippeth away from the man who invests it in businesses or purposes with which he is not familiar or which are not approved by those skilled in its keep." Or in other words, don't put money in an investment that you don't fully understand. And that's why I don't get involved in Bitcoin. And I've been offered lots of opportunities over the years, but I found I just didn't understand it. I just refuse to invest in anything unless I really comprehend what the investment is all about. Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the world, has 2 rules when it comes to this lesson. He says rule number 1 is don't lose any money. And rule number 2 is never forget rule number 1. And Warren Buffett just doesn't invest in anything that he doesn't fully understand. And I think that's a great lesson for all of us. So under lesson 4, manage risk, is also obviously insurance. You've got to protect your income, you have to protect your life, you have to protect your family and the people you care about. So insurance is a necessary evil. I hate paying it, but I know the moment I don't pay it, I'm going to regret it. Especially here in Australia, where we see a lot of bushfires. There's been some really sad stories, people losing houses and property that were never insured. So lesson 4 is very clear. Manage your risk and protect the things that provide you the income and the resources that give you the lifestyle that you want. Now lesson number 5 is an interesting one, because the book actually says own your own home. Now that's still the great Australian dream. I think in other parts of the world it's almost impossible, and it's certainly becoming impossible here in Australia to possibly own your own home. However, if you can get on the property ladder at some stage, I still think it's one of the best moves that you can make, certainly financially. Now, there's a lot of interesting debates going around now on this one, that you could possibly rent and accrue assets in other areas other than your home. And that's a good debate to have. I think I'd be happy arguing either side, in all honesty, because there's no doubt you can accumulate wealth in other ways than owning your own home. However, I have to say it is nice to be able to live in a house and say, I own that brick, and I own that brick, and I own that brick. And there's no doubt that one of the best feelings in the world is to be able to own the title on your own piece of land. Let's go to lesson 6. And lesson 6 is build a passive income for your retirement when you can no longer work or you no longer wish to work. Personally, I'd like to be able to work until the day I die, because I tend to enjoy what I do and I find it keeps my brain really active. I find many people in retirement die very quickly because they no longer seem to have a purpose to work. I find work keeps me creative, it keeps me motivated, and it keeps my brain ticking over. But that's just me. But lesson 6 is have enough assets and personal resources so that you can have a substantial living from the income of those resources without having to rely on government handouts or welfare. Now, before we go to lesson 7, if you're finding these lessons useful, could you please like the video? It really does help the channel, and consider subscribing. Now let's go to lesson 7. And lesson 7 is this: invest in yourself through continual learning. And there's another great quote in the book: that man who seeks to learn more of his craft shall be richly rewarded. Consider for a moment 2 millionaires. One's just won the lotto, money's just gone into his account, there it is, $1 million. And the other one, from an early age, paid himself first and then invested that income into assets and resources that compounded over time. They're both millionaires. But let's say something happens, something catastrophic, and they both lose their $1 million. Which of the two do you think has the best chance of regaining their $1 million? And the answer, of course, is millionaire number 2, because he's now learned the skills that created that wealth for him in the first place. When I did Mr. Rohn's seminar during his goals workshop, he said, set a goal to become a millionaire. Not for the money, but for what it will make of you in the pursuit of that goal. And the man was right. In order to become a millionaire, you need to read a lot of books. You need to do a lot of study. You need to make a lot of mistakes, and you need to learn from them quickly. But the skills you develop on that journey stay with you forever. People can take the $1 million from you, it doesn't matter. You now have the skills and tools to learn how to make that amount of money. And that's probably the most important lesson in The Richest Man in Babylon. Learn to work harder on yourself. Always invest in yourself and your continual learning and personal development. Now, if you found this video educational, I know you would enjoy this video that I shot only recently on creating a plan for your financial independence. Thanks again for taking the time to watch. I'll catch up with you next time.